Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be talking more irregular verbs. This is part 5. I'll actually put a link up here for a playlist that includes the first 4 parts, but it's not important that you watch these verbs in order. Before we get too much further, I do want to remind you to subscribe and ring that bell for all notifications. That way you'll never miss an opportunity to join one of the live classes. I'm trying to go live every single day during the quarantine. And one last thing, I am holding a contest because the channel just reached 1,000 subscribers. So if you click on the link above, it will take you to a video where you can enter a contest to win a 30-minute tutoring session with me. Now on to the lesson. I'm assuming many of you know how to use some of these irregular verbs already. So in addition to talking about how to use these verbs, I will be highlighting some prepositions and some ways to use commas, just so some of you more advanced learners can still get something out of this lesson. So the 5 verbs that I will be discussing today are leave, lose, lend, lie, and pay. So the good news is that most of these verbs, yes, they are irregular, but they take on a T or a D at the end when we use them in past tense, except for lie. Of course, that is a tricky one, but if you've seen the other 2 videos in which I've used lie, it might not be that bad. So as I have done in the other 4 videos, I will use each verb in its present tense form, in the past tense form, and in the past participle. So we have the verb leave, and in the present tense, it turns to leaves. So I actually want to talk about that one. And in the past, it's left. And in the past participle, it is I have left or he has left. If you need a little review on how to form the past participle, I have talked about it in each of the previous videos. So for leaves, I want to use that in the present tense, leaves, instead of leave. And what makes this a little bit difficult is because we have 2 kind of leaves. We have one that is a verb and we have one that is a noun. And the one that is a noun is the plural form of leaf. You know, those things that hang on trees. One leaf, more than one leaves. So the leaves fall from the trees in the fall. We're not here to talk about nouns, we're here to talk about verbs. So the sentence I have for you for present tense leave is this. Chandler leaves for work at 7 every morning. And in that sentence, there are 2 prepositional phrases. Now I know prepositions are very difficult, but the good news is most of the time, you can rearrange those prepositional phrases and the order doesn't really matter. So in this sentence, for work and at 7 are prepositional phrases. I could actually move those around if I wanted to, and the sentence would sound just fine. Chandler leaves at 7 for work every morning. Now, every is a little different. We call it a determiner, but it just determines usually the number of times. So in this case, it's every morning. If I want to, I could put a prepositional phrase at the beginning of the sentence. Let's try this one. At 7, Chandler leaves for work every morning. You could also start the sentence with every morning, Chandler leaves for work at 7. Just remember, anytime you start a sentence with something besides the subject, you need a comma before the subject. And in each example, I have done that. The best way to learn how to use prepositions is to listen to lots of native speakers use them. So I'm going to use left in the past tense a little bit differently from the way I used leaves. And in the past, we're going to talk about an action left undone. For example, I left the door open by accident. Left the door open by accident. That sentence ends with a prepositional phrase by accident. By is a preposition. And you could certainly move that to the front if you would like. By accident, I left the door open. We can also use left in a slightly different way, and I will use that for the past participle. Often in a marriage, if one partner decides to break up, maybe not quite get a divorce yet, we can say left or leaves. For example, this sentence, she has left her husband 3 times since their marriage began. And in that sentence, since her marriage began, is a prepositional phrase, and you could, if you would like, move that to the front. Since her marriage began, she has left her husband 3 times. Both sound just fine. All right, the next verb here is lose, obviously another irregular verb, and lose is just the opposite of wins. And I'm going to use an idiom in this next sentence. An idiom. I'm going to use an idiom. Joey loses his shirt every time he gambles. Joey loses his shirt every time he gambles. Our buddy, Joey, the guy I often use to illustrate bad choices in life. Well, this guy gambles quite a bit, and he lost his shirt. That idiom means he lost all of his money. In fact, maybe he lost so much, the only way he could make up for some of the money is to give the winner the shirt off his back. So when lose goes into the past tense, we use a T at the end and it becomes lost. So here's this sentence. This morning, I lost my car keys and was late to work. So in that case, the subject, the I, is doing both things. So I have a conjunction there, and, but I don't need a comma with the and because the subject is doing both actions. In this next sentence, there will be 2 different subjects doing 2 different actions. So therefore, I do need a comma with the and. How about this? This morning, I lost my car keys, comma, and my friend had to pick me up. So lost is still in the past, but it was a little bit more complicated sentence there. And the last one for lose or lost, we'll do this one in the past participle. Joey has lost his cool every time the president speaks. Joey is back. Loses his cool means he gets really mad. He loses his temper every time the president speaks. And there's that determiner again, every. And you can move that to the front of the sentence if you want, with a comma. Every time the president speaks, comma, Joey loses his cool. The next verb is lend. And that means to give somebody something, but you expect it to come back to you. You let them borrow it for a short period of time. And those 2 verbs usually go together. I lend somebody something and they borrow it from me. Almost like a give and take. Give, lend, borrow, take. So in the present tense, we can say I lend my brother $100. And bucks is just a term we sometimes use for dollars. I lend my brother $100. My brother borrows $100 from me. Oftentimes neighbors lend each other things, hoping that they will get them back when they're done using them. And for this one, I use the term lawnmower. And if you're not familiar with what lawnmower is, I will put up a picture of it. But this often happens. Maybe a lawnmower breaks down and a neighbor lends the other neighbor the lawnmower. So here's my sentence. Last week, I lent. That's how we do it in the past. I lent my neighbor my lawnmower. And let's finish up lend by putting it in the past participle. I have lent her my car whenever she needs it. So over a number of months, maybe a number of years, whenever she needs my car, I lend it to her. So I changed the tense on that a little bit, but in the past participle, it is I have lent her my car whenever she needs it. All right, I have talked quite a bit about lie versus lay. You can check out this video. It's part 4 of the irregular verbs where I talk about lay. Then I did another video on lay versus lie. So this is the 3rd time that you have heard about lie. I will be brief. What makes lie so difficult is that the base, lie, turns to lay in the past tense. Turns to lay. We have another verb, lay, but past tense is lay, and then the past participle is even a little bit more strange, I think, and that is lain. So he has lain, I have lain, we have lain. And whenever you use lie, I do that a lot. Whenever you use lie, or the person is moving themselves, or the animal is moving themselves, the verb lay means the object is being moved. Okay, 3rd time. It is tricky, but hopefully this is not new to you. So let's try to use it in the present tense. I am going to lie down in bed. I am going to lie down in bed. It's the closest I could get to present tense without sounding too goofy. So a lot of times in the United States, we'll say, I'm going to go lay down in bed. That's wrong. That's wrong. But if you're just speaking to a friend, who cares, right? Who cares? Last night, I lay in bed for 5 hours without falling asleep. So that's the past tense. You might be talking to your friend about it the next day. And maybe you're still in bed, and we'll use the past participle for this one. I have lain in bed for 5 hours and still have not fallen asleep. So, pretty difficult one there. No comma for that and, because the subject is doing both actions. And the last one I will talk about for today isn't so bad. It's pay. And when we put it in the past tense, it becomes paid. And it doesn't change in the past participle, thankfully, has paid. So it just ends with a D instead of an ED, P-A-I-D. So let's go through these quickly. You are going to pay for that. That's how we use it in the present tense mostly. And I wanted to talk about pay as then more than using it for money. I think most people probably know how to use it, like to pay for something. So I wanted to show you another way to use it. You are going to pay for that. It's actually future tense, but means you're going to suffer for that, or you are going to be punished for that action eventually. So if you hear somebody say you're going to pay for that, they must not be happy with whatever the person did, and they hopefully will get punished for it. You might also hear the term crime doesn't pay. Crime doesn't pay, meaning if you commit crimes, you'll eventually get caught for it, so it's not really worth it. Crime doesn't pay. Paid in the past tense, I paid for my groceries. Paid for my groceries. Then let's talk about it in the past participle. He has paid his rent on time every month this year. So good for him. It was not Joey. Joey would not do that. Joey would be late on his rent all the time. So I hope you learned a little bit about irregular verbs today. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for sticking with me, and I will see you next time.